What's up, everybody? We're back again with another episode of the Equity Accelerator. And I'm James Adair. I'm with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, and I'm a 16-year veteran of the mortgage industry. And this podcast is really all about ideas for the real estate industry, ideas for people who are thinking about buying a house, who want to make better borrowing decisions and better life decisions, because mortgages and real estate is a huge part of people's lives. And I am joined, as always, by my main man, Chris Angel.
Yes,
what's up, Chris?
James. Hello, James.
And it's a very special episode of the Equity Accelerator podcast. We're getting, our muscles are getting big. We're flexing or feeling confident. We're adding a third person. We have our first three-man weave with Jeff Sipes, one of my longtime friends in the industry. He is the CEO and founder of Blue Water Credit, which is a credit, I mean, if I call it a credit repair agency, would you be offended? What do you call it, Jeff?
Yeah, credit repair company is the easiest to understand, but it is kind of a scary term.
Credit repair, credit improvement, credit consultancy. We should think up of something before, by the time this episode's over, we should have a totally cool modern handle for what your company does.
Yeah.
So oftentimes people find their way to me, thank goodness, to talk about buying a house, getting a mortgage, and we do the loan application, and I pull their credit history, and sometimes the credit is not good. Sometimes the credit is a big problem and a barrier for them to enter the real estate market. And instead of me just saying, you know, call me back when you've got your act together, I say, hey, look, I want to put you in touch with Jeff and his team at Blue Water Credit, and they can be a resource to you and help you put a plan together to get your credit improved more quickly. His team has been great. I've been working with you since I think I met you at the Todd Duncan event, like in 2012 or 2011 or something. So it's been a while. We've been working together and just become good friends. He and his wife run the company, and they're just, I just think the world of them, and I trust them with my clients. And so I just keep working with them. So thank you. First of all, thank you, Jeff.
Oh yeah, you bet. And feelings mutual, James. You know, there's a lot of people in the mortgage industry, and there's, you know, a few good guys, and you're one of those guys I feel like puts people's needs first.
Well,
yeah, enough mushy stuff, right?
That's the only way to be, in my opinion. But I'm hoping that this episode is not really an advertisement for Blue Water Credit, although, I mean, feel free for anyone listening to call Blue Water Credit. But I'm hoping that this is an episode where we can really kind of go behind the scenes into how credit scores work, what things people should think about when they are preparing to borrow a lot of money, things that you think might be people that are most often surprised about. I will say before I let you talk, because I'm just monopolizing the microphone here, but I will say that whenever I give presentations to like employer groups or home buying presentation, whenever I start talking about credit scores, like people's hands just go up. Like there is, I've noticed that there is just a hunger for credit score information in the marketplace. There's something about it that people are really tuned into. And now it seems like there's all these, any credit card you have, or I mean, your banking app is offering all this credit information. It's just, it's kind of like Zillow, you know, there's all this real estate information out there online. Now there's all this credit information online. And it creates, I think, probably more confusion than it solves. What's your take on that, Jeff? Yeah,
that's probably one of the biggest things that I wanted to clear up today is where people can actually get an accurate credit score. So I'll do this as simply as possible. Credit Karma is probably the most popular credit score people have because it's free.
Owned by Google, I think.
Yeah. Credit Karma, unfortunately, I've seen it be 100 points low. It's been 75 points high. So it's just inaccurate. So if you ever want to know your credit score, there's only one way to get it online, and it's through myfico.com, myfico.com. And it's not free to buy your scores there. You got to pay $60 to get all your scores. So James, if you are able to pull credit and share it with the client, you're essentially saving them $60 to get their scores.
It's the first of many savings opportunities that my clients have in working.
And then just to let the consumers know, the reports lenders pull are going to have more detail than the online reports. Myfico.com, you're going to pay $60. You're going to get some good information, but it's not going to be as detailed as the report that James can pull, because his institution is basically getting ready to make a financial decision. So the report they have is going to be more comprehensive than anything you can get online. So, and then, like I said, make sure that you aren't putting a lot of weight in the credit scores that you have through credit monitoring or Credit Karma, because they're not accurate. So that's
one of the things that I tell people when they come in and they say, oh, my credit's this because I saw it on Credit Karma, I always caution them. And I first say, you know, the credit score you see on those free services is a lot like the Zestimate on Zillow, where you plug it in and it's probably a decent gauge, but it's not the real thing, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And I also tell people, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I'm right, but my wife will tell you that I oftentimes say things that sound like I'm totally confident and I know what I'm talking about, but then she'll say, wait, is that true? And I'll be like, oh, I don't know. I think it's right. So this is one of those things. I always tell people that one of the factors in the credit score is who's asking and why. And when you're inquiring your credit score on your own behalf through Credit Karma or even myfico.com, that means one thing. And when my mortgage company is inquiring on your behalf to make a financial decision, like you said, that means another thing, and it affects the score outcome.
Yeah. So, you're talking about like if somebody applies for a loan, like what the impact is. That's a big question a lot of people have. How much does it hurt my score from having a lender run my credit? If you go to FICO's,
let me pause you real quick. Okay. This is a huge thing I want to really clarify. We talked about this a few weeks ago when I was hoping to get you on this show.
Yep.
What everyone wants to know, they'll say, well, I want to apply for a loan, but don't pull my credit because I don't want it to affect my score. And it's the only score I ever see, so I guess I'm biased, but I'm like, I don't think it affects your score as much as you think it might. Right. And I don't even know that it affects it at all, frankly. But what's your take on that, Jeff?
So FICO's website, myfico.com, there's an educational piece. They have tons of articles you can read. So according to their website, when you apply for a loan, whether it's a car, a home, a credit card, it's going to affect the score up to 5 points. Okay. Now, one thing that you do have the ability to rate shop. What that means is if you applied with a mortgage person 2 weeks ago and James, you run credit, there won't be any impact from you pulling credit. FICO builds in a 30-day window to have multiple mortgage lenders run credit, and only the first pull hurt the score up to 5 points. Each additional inquiry does not affect the score at all. So just want to be clear with that.
Because the algorithm knows that if you talk to 3 different mortgage companies, you're not getting 3 mortgages.
Right.
You're just shopping around.
Yeah.
Whereas is it the same with a credit card? Because you can talk to 3 different credit card companies and absolutely get 3 credit cards simultaneously.
Yeah. Right? Great point. So you have 30 days to rate shop for a house and a car. Each credit card inquiry would affect the score up to 5 points. And that's going to hurt the score for 12 months. After a year, it stops having the impact.
Oh, even with the mortgage, when you pull mortgage, if someone has like, I have an 800 score and I've been working my whole life for this, and then I'm like, pull their credit and it's 795.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, 795, that's great. And they're just crushed.
Yeah, they're hurting for that. Yeah. And I wanted to talk too, if you're okay with it, a little bit about what the score really means. So
yes.
So that's probably the biggest thing that we do is educate clients on what a credit score is. Basically, a credit score predicts your odds of not paying back your loan.
Right.
And so if you apply for a home loan, that's why they have specific FICO scores for home loans, because they want to know their specific odds of not getting paid back on a mortgage. Now, the auto industry also has FICO scores versions, and so do credit card companies, so do personal finance. So unfortunately, James, this is confusing, and I hate to throw this out there, but there's over 60 versions of FICO. And so just because you know your FICO score doesn't mean it's going to be the same number that you pull. No, my personal FICO score, I've seen a 50-point variance between like my mortgage and my credit card FICO. So I've had my mortgage FICO was like an 830 and my credit card FICO was an 881. So with credit cards, the scoring model actually goes higher than.
Do they even operate on the same spectrum of numbers?
Don't. Yeah, your spectrum goes up to 850, and credit cards and cars goes up to 900.
900, that's right. People in the car industry are like, oh, I got a 900 credit score. And I'm like,
yeah. You're like, yeah, liar. Well,
right?
You're in that was a lot of information. Do you have any questions or wanted me to peel back anything else on that?
Yeah, so let's talk about, so I love that. I love that data point about how does it affect your score. People are very, very cautious about altering their credit score. And rightly so. I mean, I don't want to be glib about it, but if you're getting a mortgage and someone's making a credit decision, you have to pull back the curtain sometimes and let a financial institution take your temperature before they give you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I guess, what are some things, I mean, what makes up a credit score? I know that. So for instance, I just referred someone to you yesterday who has a 525 score. And this is a guy who's a professional guy. He's younger. And I think he just was like kind of a mess in his 20s or whatever.
Yeah.
And, has a lot of collections, and basically has bad credit, and then just sort of like he just cut himself off. He's like, okay, I've solved that problem. I've sort of settled that, and I'm just going to be a cash guy from now on.
Yeah.
And then years go by, and then now he's married, and his wife, who has like an 800 credit score, now they want to buy a house, and now he's having to like he's having to figure out how to improve his score, because they qualify for a house without him, but they'll qualify for the real house that they want. They need his income. People don't realize if your score is below a qualifying threshold, you just can't be on the loan. And if you're not on the loan, we can't use your income. So that's a huge governor for how much you can borrow. This couple, with just the wife, qualifies for about a $340,000 purchase. And I think the kind of property they want is going to be more like $400,000. So they're a little bit stuck until he can get his score up.
Yep.
But his story is one that I think is pretty common, where he just needs to start taking some steps to remove things from his history, because he can't qualify for a credit card right now. So I told him, get on as an authorized user on your wife's account. See if your parents can sign you up as an authorized user on their account, because your credit score doesn't impact your ability to get that. That will pull some of that data into your credit history.
Yep.
So that's a trick I learned from you guys as an easy first step. And then maybe get a secured card if possible. But I think there's a lot of stuff in his credit history that I'm hoping your team can figure out how to remove.
Yeah.
So can you speak about that?
Yeah. So credit score, I mean, it's a lot like, there's a couple ways to look at it. It could be like a GPA. FICO looks at 5 areas of your credit. So they're looking at your payment history. They're looking at the amount of debt you have. They're looking at the age or history of the accounts. They're looking at what type of accounts you have open and active. And they're also looking at how often you're applying for new credit. And so each one of those categories is weighted a little different. So the main 2 categories is what we really coach on. One is payment history. That represents 35% of the score. Okay. And so our company, we work like a defense attorney. We use the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the laws against the creditors, and 40% of the time we can get accounts like collections, late payments removed based on it being inaccurate, incomplete, or not being verifiable.
Gotcha.
So if those accounts come off the report, it's going to increase the score.
Okay.
The second component of your credit score that we really help our coach on is credit card usage. And this one is what most people don't understand. If you have a $1,000 credit card limit, you're going to be penalized if you use more than $100 on it by FICO, because the more of a credit card limit you use, the more risky FICO sees you being.
Right.
So
the closer you are to being maxed out.
Yep. Maxed out credit cards. A maxed out credit card can drop a score up to 40 points. So therefore, keeping your credit card balances between 1% and 10%, you can improve your score by up to 40 points.
Wow.
So that's one thing that we really drill home with our clients is, if you don't have a credit card, you need one. So get a secured credit card with your bank, credit union, or we have a resource we can refer. And then only use 10% or less of the limit each month, and then just pay it off entirely. And you'd be surprised how much just doing that alone can improve a score.
Wow. You keep talking about FICO, and that stands for the Fair Isaac Corporation, right?
Correct. Yeah. Started in San Ramon in 1956 in an apartment.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now it's $1 billion company.
I don't know how good I feel about that.
Right?
Wow. So Fair Isaac. So when I pull someone's credit on a mortgage credit application, I get 3 scores: one from FICO, one from Experian, and one from TransUnion. And are Experian and TransUnion also pulling FICO scores, or a version of FICO, the FICO algorithm, or what's the difference between those 3 bureaus?
Yeah. So Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian are the 3 credit bureaus, and their only job is to gather information to sell. And so when a bank pulls credit, they're buying the credit reports from the credit bureaus, and they're paying FICO for their risk. So think of FICO as looking at the credit report, and it's giving us a 3-digit number that represents risk on the loan.
Gotcha.
So for instance, your Sierra Pacific is going to order the reports, all 3 of them, and they're going to pay each credit bureau for the information, and they're also going to pay FICO for a credit score for each credit bureau.
I see.
So FICO is its own company.
So the 3 bureaus are applying the same algorithm, but they may just have different data. You use 3 bureaus to kind of smooth out the volatility of one of them having bad information. That's what we do is when we pull credit, we use all 3 scores, and we eliminate the highest score and the lowest score, and use the one in the middle.
Yep.
And I guess that improves the odds of accuracy.
Yeah. So the reason that scores vary so much is information varies between the credit bureaus. So about 60% of the accounts on your credit show up on all 3 bureaus, but about 35 to 40% of them only show up on 1 or 2 credit bureaus. And the reason being is you have to pay to report, and you also have to be approved to report. So some collection agencies that are smaller, they're only going to pay to report with maybe 1 credit bureau, or maybe they can't get approved to report with the other 2 bureaus. Chris mentioned earlier eOscar. Not to get too technical, but eOscar is the software creditors have to purchase to push the information to the credit bureaus. So Wells Fargo or B of A or Chase, they have this software eOscar that they push information to the credit bureau. And so that's how the information gets updated each month, is the creditor communicates with the credit bureau through this software.
Was eOscar also invented in an apartment somewhere in California?
I don't know, man. eOscar is kind of that one. The closest thing to artificial intelligence I can think of.
It's crazy. Jeff, I have a question for you.
Isaac, what's going on?
Right, I know, right? Yeah, Isaac, Oscar. I have a question on the like the collections things. You mentioned collections. If a collections company sells the debt to another collection company, does the next collection company put that on the report? Like, so even if I get it removed from one collection company, does it show up again because it was sold?
Yes, it could. Yeah, so that's one thing that we do. We recommend. I know is if collection. So just for clarification, paying a collection doesn't make your score better. Okay. But paying a collection prevents it from being sold over and over again. So it prevents your credit from getting worse. And so we recommend settling a collection if it's tied to a phone or a TV. Like, for example, Sprint, Verizon, Comcast, DirecTV, Dish. Those are so common. Those accounts get transferred over and over and over again. And so we talk to a lender probably once a week where they're like, we're in escrow and the credit score just dropped because a brand new collection just showed up. And we'll look at the report and it will be a phone or a cable collection, and it was already on there, but then they sold to another debt buyer and it showed up again and their score just dropped because of that.
Yeah.
So we do recommend settling collections if they are within 4 years. Or if
within 4 years of being sent to collection to begin with?
Pardon me?
Within 4 years of having been originated?
Yes, from the original date. Yeah.
That's something that I've seen as well, that I learned the hard way early on in my career, is when you have a collection and you're like, oh, well, let's just pay that off. And you pay it off and actually your score actually goes down, because sometimes it's a collection from years ago and the age, and it hasn't even been reported or updated in a while. And then you pay it off and you kind of like, it refreshes.
Yes.
And, you know, it's someone, I remember back in the subprime days, someone was like, well, you have to have a 600 credit score to get this 0 down loan. And they had a 580 or something, or a 95. They were just close, but there's a collection. I was like, let's just pay the collection off and that'll probably fix it. And then we paid the collection off and then like repulled the credit 2-3 weeks later, and their score nothing had changed except for they paid the credit off and the score went down by like 20 points.
Yeah. So it's illegal to do, James, but we see that happen all the time.
What's illegal to do?
The collection agency reages the debt like it just happened.
Oh, I thought you said it was illegal for me to advise.
Oh, no.
Well, James, that's illegal to do, but let me just address that really quick.
We can edit this out, right? Okay.
Yeah, right.
So that's
for clarification. When a collection first hits the score, it affects the score the most. And then each month that it ages, it affects the score less. So like you're saying, if you have a collection that's 6 years old, it's not affecting the score very much. So if your client goes and pays that collection off and then the collection agency makes it look like the collection just happened, the score could tank like 60 or 70 points from doing that.
Wow.
So
I had another interesting revelation years ago when I took a loan application from somebody who had declared personal bankruptcy. He was like, just so you know, I do have a bankruptcy. I declared bankruptcy like 3 or 4 years ago, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for telling me. And I was bracing myself for like, kind of a shaky credit score. And his credit score was like great. It was mid sevens.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I've never seen someone with a bankruptcy with such a great credit score. And he may have even done bankruptcy like a year or two, but it would just happen. He's like, well, yeah, it was a medical thing. I saw how much they were going to charge me. And I knew I didn't have that money and I didn't have any vision on how I would get that money. So I just immediately declared bankruptcy. Mm. And it occurred to me that declaring bankruptcy in of itself is not necessarily like a huge knock on a credit score, but most people go through these like protracted gyrations of going behind on their debt over month after month after month for a year or two, and then they declare bankruptcy. So it's really the thing that wrecks their score is all the stuff that leading up to the bankruptcy, not the bankruptcy itself. Is that true, or is that? Or am I...
So I'll do my best to answer this without being too complicated.
Okay.
So FICO looks at how many accounts on your credit report were delinquent, and they also look at how severe was the delinquency.
Right.
So every trade line on your credit has a rating from 1 to 10. Sorry, 1 to 9. So bankruptcy has a rating of 7, which isn't as bad as like a collection. Or if you go 180 days late on a credit card, that gets a 9 rating. So if you just include an account in bankruptcy, it does affect the score, but not as severe as if you just let it go to collections, or if you go 180 days late on a credit card.
Yeah.
So yeah, we someone that files bankruptcy is a great candidate for us to help, because really the first step with repairing your credit is getting out of debt. So once you're out of debt, then it's a matter of repairing the old credit and building new credit.
Interesting.
Wow.
Awesome.
I love that. I think one of the things I love about this conversation is all the nuance there is to your credit score. Like, it's not just a 3-digit number. There's like all these factors that go in. And if I think for most people, this is over their head, which is why I think stuff that you're doing, Jeff, with, helping coaching people through how to improve that is so valuable. I think most of us suffer a bad credit score when we don't need to, if we just had the help and the coaching to get there.
What about, I agree. I think this is super valuable. And I love having an actual pro at my disposal, and I'm excited to have this conversation recorded so I can share it over and over again with clients in the future as they're embarking on the process to be able to do a deep dive into credit. What do you think of people who fetishize their credit score and are just really uptight? You ever have people that call you because they have a 750 and they want an 800?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Really?
We talk about it. I did a lecture last week and someone in the crowd was like, but I want an 800. I don't care. And I always pick on the lender, right? So James, in your profession, at what point do you stop getting a better interest rate on a loan with your credit score?
740 is kind of the high water mark.
Okay.
Beyond that, it's like bragging rights.
Okay, so that's it. So 740 plus is the promised land for credit score. Right. So if you're looking at a 780 and you want an 800, I get it, right? We call it game in the credit score, right?
Right.
So I could give you guys a recipe, if you will, for a perfect credit score. This information is pretty new.
Ooh.
All right. You
heard
ready?
it here first. I love it. Yeah.
All right. So I have it right here. Let me get it down. So obviously no late payments, no collections, no tax liens, no judgments. Next is you want your credit card balances between 1% and 5% of the credit card limit.
Boom.
So that's it, 1% to 5%. Next is your installment loan. So your car loan, your student loan,
Yeah.
It needs to be at 40% or less of the original loan.
Got it.
Okay. The third piece is having a credit card with a 25-year history.
Ooh.
Yeah. The next.
You got to earn that one.
What's that,
Yeah.
Chris?
You got to earn that one.
Right. You can't. Yeah. Well, unless James has this authorized user business going on, then you can technically add.
That's your idea. You told me about that.
Sign me onto your account. Sign me onto your 25-year card, will you?
Yeah, get a 25-year-old. After that, FICO looks at the newest account open. They want the newest account to have a 2-year payment history.
Okay.
Then FICO looks at an
new,
average.
but not that new.
What's that, James?
So they want it new, but not that new.
Right, exactly. And then FICO looks at the average of all of your accounts, and they want to see an average age of around 11 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And then finally, they like 6 accounts open, paid as agreed, 6 accounts. So that's 1 to 5 credit cards, a car loan, and a mortgage.
Wow.
So if you have all of that, yes, you may have a perfect credit score.
Wow. Of all the things I think you could spend your life doing and trying to game what certain systems, I think this one like ranks pretty low on my list of like must-haves. I must have that number.
I know, right?
I just tell people, as long as you have had debt and you've made an effort to pay your bills on time, and no one's sending you nasty letters in the mail, you probably have a pretty good credit score. That's my sense.
Yeah. You know, James, too, it's funny. Collections only can report for 7 years, but they can try to collect on them forever. Mm-hmm. So we have people call us all the time that say, hey, I'm getting these threatening letters. And then I'm like, well, let's show me your credit report and we'll look through credit, and it's not on there. So you could have defaulted on a lot of debt, and then if it's 7 years or older, it won't show up on your credit. So that's a good thing.
Collection industry, that is a shady area. The collection industry, that's like, I guess if a lender owns a debt and they are like, this debt's done, they're not paying me back. This guy owes me $2,000 and I've been sending him nasty letters for a year and he won't respond. And so a collection company will buy that $2,000 obligation for what? $50?
It depends. So credit cards will sell usually 5-10 cents on the dollar. Now, It depends on how old it is. Right. This is a little heavy talk, but each state has a different statute of limitations. That's the right the collector has to sue to get a judgment.
Okay.
So Oregon, 6 years, California's 4 years. So that means 4 years from the last payment or 6 years from the last payment, the creditor can take the client to court and get a judgment.
What does that do? What does it mean to have a judgment?
So if somebody has a judgment against them, that's where they can get their wages garnished from their job.
Oh, gotcha.
They can levy a bank account. So if somebody puts money in their bank account and a creditor has a judgment, they can levy the money and take it out.
Gotcha.
Or they can put a lien. Involved. They can put a lien on a property. So they could put a lien against the house. And then in order to refinance or sell, that lien has to be satisfied.
Gotcha. So it puts more teeth into that collection.
Yeah. Judgments are nasty too. They can be renewed every 10 years. So technically they can go on forever, and they're allowed to accrue 12% interest per year, which means they're doubling every 6 years. So a $10,000 judgment could be $20,000 in 6 years. 12 years, it could be, double. So yeah, it adds up.
Wow.
Man. Well, Jeff, I think that's a lot for us to ponder. This has been it's been great having you. And I'll be in touch. And if you're in the mortgage business or in the real estate business and listening to this, you should definitely check in with Jeff and the Blue Water Credit team. I know that credit repair it's an industry where that draws a lot of different kinds of characters. I think, Jeff, your story is that you knew that the credit repair industry was full of kind of charlatans and people who would take advantage of people in bad credit situations, and that you're called Blue Water Credit because you felt like it would be a blue ocean strategy to be, above board, accredited with a Better Business Bureau, and just run it like an actual financial services business. So I really appreciate having that in my, in the corner of my clients, helping them have a solid resource to lean on. And if you're listening to this and you're looking for a resource to bring into your business, definitely look up Blue Water Credit. They've been awesome.
Oh, thanks, James.
Yeah, man.
Well, I appreciate your time. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can contact our office. We always offer free consultation and we're here to help. So thanks so much for having me join your show.
Jeff, what's your web address? What's your web address?
It's bluewatercredit.com.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. We'll look forward to doing this again real soon.
Yeah, it was a good episode today. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, James.